Hey Pat, how you doing? You got me?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am outstanding. I
It
am.
is good to be with you.
Yes, sir.
Um, well, I appreciate you hopping on the call with me today. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself. I'm Caleb Scott. I'm the creative marketing consultant for DemX Media, and essentially what we do is we present information that informs and educates voters in Georgia about the political process and candidates that hold and seek those positions so that voters can make the best decisions that benefit the lives of all those who live in Georgia.
Okay.
And essentially, the reason I started DemX is because I'm committed to promoting progressives to power that have the minds and the hearts of the people in why they run instead of, let's say, corporations or themselves, so that they have that in mind when they're running. And to me, you epitomize that. From what I've learned of you and your campaign, but I won't introduce you. I'd like for you to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, yeah, we started. We ready?
Yeah,
All
ready.
right. First of all, thank you and congratulations on the start of your company and some of the things that you've been able to do. My name is Patrick Labat. I'm born and raised right here in Fulton County. One of the differences between me and the incumbent is I'm from these streets, from Southwest Atlanta. Um, this is a joy for me. This is a passion. And so I actually grew up here, started working at a very early age, but I went to Frederick Douglass High School, Clark Atlanta University, and my path through Clark Atlanta University was a little different than most. I started working at 11 at night to 7 in the morning at the city jail and going to school during the daytime. And so it was a little bit, my collegiate career was a little different, as I mentioned. While I was at Clark and, I got my degree, my undergraduate degree, as well as got my master's degree from Columbus State University. So just a wonderful opportunity for me. And unlike a lot of people, I stayed at one job for 30 years. So the
Yeah.
first 20, while I was in school and a little beyond, I worked my way up through the ranks. In 2010, I was appointed chief of the City of Atlanta Department of Corrections. And the unique piece for me is we were able to build a team when many people thought we couldn't, that focused on our jail, making our jail an asset and not a liability, focusing on our community. And we were very thoughtful about that. And so as we progressed over the years, we were the only facility, there are less than 5% of the jails in the country that have their American Correctional Association accreditation. And not only did we have ours, the only one in the state to have our accreditation, we maintain a perfect score of 100 all 10 years, and as well as a perfect score on our Fulton County Health Score. I would tell people all the time, our jail is cleaner than most restaurants you eat in. And so we were very thoughtful.
Well, I've been to some in Atlanta where I can attest that. Let's be real here.
Yeah. So we were very intentional about making sure the things we could control, we did. And so with that, we went on from a city jail perspective to really land on a national stage. We created the PAT 3 reentry program, a program that was designed for reentering citizens. And so we partnered with the State Department of Corrections, as well as Urban League of Greater Atlanta. And we created a true reentry program. Most reentry programs, you hear about the classes, the study, and they ultimately stop with the point of release. Well, for us, the PAT 3 program, the program to really transition through training and therapy for us is what it was called, hence the PAT and then the 3 piece,
Yeah.
the 3 T's. But for us, it was an opportunity to do a program that no one had done in the country that we knew of at the time. And so when everybody tells you what you can't do, that really just drives you a little further. And so instead of leaving with $25 in a bus ticket from prison after serving 5 or 10 or 15 years, and these are nonviolent criminals, people left, the participants left with $10, $15, $20,000 in the bank. But equally as important is they became city employees, and they remain city employees. So this was, and I tell people all the time, this is about starting your retirement program while you're incarcerated. And so think about it. How many young men are removed from their families? I won't say removed, have been convicted. And at this point, the reentry process, they don't get a true second chance. So our reentry process included an opportunity for housing if they didn't have stabilization within their family to be there. The process included them paying child support while they're incarcerated. And to have a grown man tell you, Chief, I never thought I'd be able to buy my daughter a prom dress, right?
Yeah.
But this is about changing lives. And so after I wrapped my 30-year career, I sat down for about a month. My wife and I had already decided, this is an obligation. My family, we have a blended family. We live in Southwest Atlanta, South Fulton County, if you will. Depends on where your viewers, kind of the geography of it. And this is the reason I'm running, the passion that goes along with it. So we have a blended family, 2 girls, 2 boys, and a rescue dog named Hugo. And so he's really the boss of the house. But it is just a fantastic opportunity for us to change what law enforcement looks like in our community and be very thoughtful about it. So it's a wonderful opportunity. That's me in a nutshell. I'm enjoying the time. We started running literally 454 days ago. And so now with 4 days left. And so hopefully your viewers will see the things that really brought me this far. All right. And that is about how do we change the conversation? How do we make sure we pay attention to our community? And so it's a wonderful opportunity. So I could keep talking, but I know you have other questions.
Yeah, of course. Just getting a sense of who you are. I mean, you portray excellence, I would say, really. And that's important because at the end of the day, there was something I got to speak with Fonnie the other day. I don't know if you saw that, but it's really cool. And her thing was talking about due process and allowing people the chance to, really to have a second chance in case they maybe messed up once or twice in life. And I get the sense from that too, and it's really good. But yeah, I wanted to just kind of give some background, shift gears a little bit. What would you say is the responsibility of the physician for the sheriff's office?
So it's really 3 things that constitutionally the state gives the sheriff the authority, and that is responsibility over the courts to protect the courts, serving warrants or expediting and executing warrants, and then the third being control and custody and really over the jail. But the basic tenet for any law enforcement is public safety. And so the sheriff in this instance, as you know, there are 159 counties in the state. Fulton County is the largest, with Atlanta, the capital, sitting inside Fulton County. So the Fulton County sheriff is considered what's called a high sheriff. And so there is no other law enforcement, a duly elected official that has more authority than the sheriff. And so, in fact, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement executive in the county. And to that point, one of the things that is necessary is that we set the tone for law enforcement. And you'll hear the incumbent talk about partnering with the 15 different cities internally to Fulton County, and I hear differently, right? I was part of that as chief of the City of Atlanta Department of Corrections. I reached out to the sheriff on multiple occasions. Just look, when we went through cash bail reform, we went from a population to include ICE anywhere of 800 detainees to less than 150. I'm sitting there with 1,300 beds, pardon me, at less than 3 miles down the street. And there's an overcrowded situation at the county jail. There are young men sleeping on the floor. And I, like many other chiefs around the county, experienced what we all experienced, and the sheriff simply just wouldn't call us back. And so that in and of itself really fueled my, or strengthened my resolve to say, let me show people how this is done. And then when you look at the sheriff's office being the chief law enforcement in the agency or the office in the county, you see little, if no, enforcement. And so we have shifted away. And the sheriff the incumbent has moved, per his own authority, right, moved toward more of a jailer than law enforcement officer. And so we have to I think a bit of that is overcorrecting, and then have done a good job with that, right? You look at the South Fulton Annex, which Fulton County bought, as you may know, because I know you seem like you do a lot of research. Federal Judge Ray issued an injunction last year against the sheriff because there were women out there that hadn't had a shower in a month or two. The federal judge actually said the conditions out here are repulsive, issued an injunction for a 30-day improvement plan, and also said a part of that is that whoever's in charge of this facility should have trouble sleeping at night. Well, to me, that is a third of your job. And I tell people all the time, and if you include the law enforcement component, now you're beyond half. And the only person that can be wrong half the time over 12 years and keep their job is a weatherman. So it is
that's right.
It's time for change. And so as I explained to the incumbent, again, who refused to have conversations with me over a year and a half period, we have the space. We need to treat people like they're human. We have an obligation to do that. And we have an obligation to go after these bad actors that are out here tearing up our community. And so when you look at the statistics, in the last month and a half to 2 months, murder has gone up in our county, in Atlanta surrounding proper, 240%. You look at the fact that there are violent repeat offenders, less than 500 of them that are committing 40 to 50% of the crime. Now, these are folks that we know are wanted. These are individuals that we know have warrants. But the sheriff's office, in and of itself, stops serving warrants at 10 o'clock at night. So if you're a criminal in Fulton County, you can sleep well at night until I get sworn in. When I get sworn in, the last thing you want to do is go to sleep, because we're coming to see about these bad guys. We have to. Crime is out of control. I don't care what the sheriff says. It is absolutely out of control, and we have to do better. And part of my campaign promise, and I want you to hold me to this, is that before my 4 years up, right, we're going to put 200 deputies on the streets to patrol. Right now, it's around 30, and most of those, well, let me rephrase that. It's about 8 that participate the way they should. Right. And so he said last night he has 1 deputy assigned to South Fulton. It's the largest county in Georgia. We deserve better, and it's an opportunity for us. So I've said quite often, I'm going to put 200 deputies and patrol cars on the street. And if I don't, I won't run for sheriff again in 4 years. So I want you to hold me to that. So I hope I explained that. And what else do we have?
Well, you kind of shared a little bit about the history, but obviously you have a relationship, working for the jail with the incumbent. What would you say the history of the position has been? And um, I guess in response, what key changes do you want to make? I mean, you just mentioned one, but if you could kind of share the history and then
So
what you want to do differently.
the sheriff's office across the country is the oldest law enforcement establishment in the world. All right. And we date back to, as far as I can remember, Leroy Stinchcomb, who was then beat by Sheriff Langford or in a race. And it was just an opportunity for the first black female, um, Jackie Barrett, to become the first African American sheriff in the world. And as I mentioned that, Sheriff Langford, certainly Sheriff Barrett, and even my two former candidates that were running, the former Sheriff Myron Freeman, who's endorsing me, by the way, as well as Walter Calloway, who's endorsing.
I saw that. Yeah.
So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to change the dynamics of the sheriff's office, be very thoughtful about building trust in our community. That's where we have to start. We have to figure out, for me, and this is proven leadership. One of the things that we were able to accomplish at the sheriff's, I was going to say sheriff's office, I'm not there yet, at the city of Atlanta, is we focused on customer service. And when you focus on customer service, be thoughtful about rebuilding trust, we have to make sure our communities understand that our hearts are bigger than our badges. And when we put that first, we can begin to build trust. And here's a wonderful opportunity. As you already know, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, as my grandma would say. And on August 12th, I become sheriff-elect. And in an unusual situation, instead of winning the election in November and then having December to transition, we have September, October, November, and December to transition because there's no Republican candidate.
Right.
So what a wonderful opportunity, right? Now, let me be clear, August 12th through September, Labor Day, I'm going to shut down a little bit because my wife is reclaiming her time, all right?
Yeah.
So, I want to make sure, as they say, happy wife, happy life. And so just
Right.
a wonderful opportunity for us to move the sheriff's office in a direction that it goes back to. Let's be honest. Under Sheriff Langford, under Sheriff Barrett, under Sheriff McMichael, they had 400 reserve deputies, right? These working doctors, lawyers, really good citizens who wanted to be a part of the Sheriff's Reserve. Right. And that Sheriff's Reserve, to your point, dates back to when sheriffs on horseback had what's called posses. And so we're going to start Pat's Posse. And we're going to get our citizens the training they need, the ones that want to be reserve deputies. And we're going to increase the training that we have now. And then the other thing that we have to focus on, I'm sure you're very familiar with, is that the jails have become the mental health institutions in the state.
Right.
And we have to be very, very, very thoughtful about making sure we provide currently and then expand the mental health opportunities for those that are incarcerated, as well as, and here's the piece that many people leave out, as well as the same for our staff. See, and what I mean is, in 30 years, I had one psychological exam, and that was when I was first hired. Well, that's a lot to unpack on a daily basis. We ask our responders, and let me tell you why I just say responders. I'll go back to that in a second. We ask our responders to see a lot, to deal with a lot, but that's a lot to unpack. And so I am going to have our responders, if you will, have a psych eval at least once a year. So at that point, we can see if they need help in many instances before they know they need help. And so we want to do that. And let me go back to the reason I said responders. The current environment, the sheriff considers the organization second responders. The Constitution of the state does not dictate that at all. We should be first responders in every instance, in every situation. We should lead and set the example for law enforcement. And there are great people at the sheriff's office. They're just starving for leadership. And that may be an older model, right? But it is time for change. It is time for energy, active engagement. I had an opportunity, as you may have seen. I was the regional VP for Noble, a national organization, Black law enforcement executives on a national level. They asked me to step in and moderate a sheriff's conference and a sheriff's panel. And one of the things that the more progressive and visionary sheriffs will tell you is that the time of sitting in those ivory towers, disseminating responsibilities, is gone. There are young people, especially, that are coming along that don't trust law enforcement, that need to see the sheriff out front, being active and engaged. And that's what we'll bring to the table. And one other thing I'll bring, since you asked, and we talked about some of the differences, I'm going to, and this was maybe right up your alley, I am going to start a cyber SWAT team. Now, the average age of the team, I want to be about 25 years old. And because there are young professionals, IT professionals, young, and just in general, an entirely different generation that I can envision fighting crime from a laptop. And we have to figure out how to get ahead of that, be the first in the country to do it. But it also allows the generation to say, you know what, I work for the sheriff's office and I am in law enforcement. And so that message begins to permeate our customers, begin to permeate the county. And one of my visions is to not just have a cyber SWAT team, but I want our community to say, you know what, that's my sheriff. That's my sheriff's office. In 444 days, I promise you, I have not had more complaints about who is actually the sheriff. Who's the sheriff, right? And to me, that is a weakness we have to really destroy or debunk that whole conversation, because I want people to say, you know what, and my team hates this, I give out my phone number. And now, by the time you as a citizen, John Q. Public, gets to me, if your problem hadn't been solved, that means somebody hadn't done their job. But I want people to be able to say, hey, Sheriff, look, you know, and the interesting part, right, I did this while I was chief. The interesting part is people will not call you and say, you know, I was going to call you. I didn't want to bother you. Well, that's why I gave you my number. I want you to bother me. It should not take, there's a current lawsuit for 300 people. The systems went down for GCIC, the Georgia Crime Information Center, where the sheriff's office held people who had already made bond 48 hours up to 5 days. These people were free to go. And if you had a strong need, and the incumbent dissolved the fugitive unit, I want the #1 fugitive unit in the country. If you had a good fugitive unit, you'd be confident, you know what? We did everything on the front end to make sure, if you leverage technology properly, and which is what we did at the city, to know who these individuals are. If there's something that comes up after they are free, then we can focus on that as well. But it's time for a change. I'm excited about Fulton County. When you look at the number of votes cast, there are a lot of new people that did vote, but at the same time, there are almost 100,000 people that did not vote for the incumbent. And that says a lot. That says a lot. So I'm sorry, I just keep talking.
Hey, this is why I do it. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, like, excellent. Your character permeates out of that. It's awesome. But you said a word that I kind of want to touch on: change. I think excellent, part of being excellent is that willingness to change and see what works and what doesn't work. And if you could just explain, what is your campaign slogan? It's time for change, and Fulton County Sheriff's Office mean to you?
So what I mean is, if we continue to do the same thing we've always done, we'll always get what we always got, right? And for me, that is, and I told the incumbent this yesterday on a different forum. For me, that means being on the cutting edge of technology, being hiring and retaining the best qualified people, being diverse in our thought process. Fulton County is a very diverse county. And if you take an opportunity, you may have already done it. If you take an opportunity to pull up the 10 executives at the sheriff's office, you won't find any females and you won't find anybody other than African American males. To me, that says a lot about the lack of diversity. It says about the brass ceiling that they have created by the administration, the incumbent in particular. Look, I was raised by a single black female. I know how talented my mom is. I know some of the things that she did to include the civil rights movement and help people get engaged with the student movement. But to tell an individual that me, right, John Q. Public, right, that the staff makeup of the sheriff's office is 65 to 70% female, and we don't have any talented female leaders in executive positions, says a lot. And so we have to be very thoughtful about diversity. When, again, a proven track record, I made sure at the City of Atlanta Department of Corrections, we had a great balance where it doesn't matter to me if you're black, white, green, purple, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. If you're the most talented, I want you to be in that position. We're the first jail in the Southeast to create a LBGTQ liaison. And she was a captain and absolutely fantastic. So I don't care what your preferences are. What I care about is you doing the job. And so we can really create that environment. It's time for change. And when you look at and you hear what people are saying, they want a sheriff that's active, engaged, bold, transparent, right? I want to be able to create a transition team that includes the community. Right, unheard of. People have. I hate when people tell me what I can't do, right? But it's absolutely, I apologize, unheard of. And we need to be able to focus on those things that make us better. Those things that look. In most instances, we are more similar than we are different, and we need to focus on those differences and be respectful of those differences, and then we can move the department forward.
Yeah, I love it. I love what I'm hearing. And I know you mentioned 200. I remember that. But what else by the end of your first term can we expect from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office?
Well, we're going to clean up the South Annex. That's by no means. I've already met with the mayor, right? And we're going to make that a priority. We're going to break that brass ceiling. We're going to recruit talented female to run that facility. You know, there are a lot of things. I was talking to one of my sons earlier, and there are a lot of things that we can understand or we can learn, but to have an intuitive recognition of what an in custody female population may need, we need a strong, talented female commander. We're going to break that brass ceiling. And at that point, that's one, right? We talked about putting 200 deputies on the street in patrol cars, et cetera. We're going to expand and create the best reentry program in the country. We're going to work better with our judges. And let me tell you why I say that. And you may have already done the math, but if you look at pre-COVID, Fulton County Jail was averaging 2,900, 3,000, 3,200 detainees. And all of a sudden, during COVID and a pandemic, all these entities can work together. And when they work together, they can release 600 people, right? They can go through the processes, which means those persons shouldn't have been in jail in the first place. To me, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth when a person, I'll just use criminal trespassing, for example, uh, goes to court, doesn't get a bond, ends up getting lost in jail, spends more time in jail than he or she would have gotten for their original sentence. We have to, on a daily basis, comb those records, figure out how we can help people. And we talked about the mental health from that perspective. And then the other thing we have to do is really focus on, I talked about the mental health of our officers and staff as well. We can make these changes, and I tell everybody, it doesn't take a year. We're talking 3 to 6 months we can make these changes. There are 150 vacancies at the sheriff's office. And the incumbent likes to say, well, um, you know, vacancies are a natural thing. No one wants to get into law enforcement. Law enforcement and the community don't get along now. Well, as I reminded him last night, guess what? For 10 years, I made it a point to fill every vacancy we had, and we treated people with respect, treating them like their family. We didn't have a lot of turnover, staff turnover. And now purposely I kept between 4 and 5 vacant positions so that I could look at what our needs were on a constant basis. But to have 100 to 150 vacancies, no wonder the sheriff's office is not able to be in the streets and patrol, not able to, and they're burning people out. You know, one thing about it, and I'm sure once your company expands, to Google proportions, one of the things that you will find is that when you burn people out, they tend to be less productive. They don't, and when the culture changes, right? I'm not saying this will happen, but this is what has happened.
That's the word. That's the word. It's the culture. It's the culture.
Right.
They have to want to be there and to work there and to love
and
it.
when the,
Really.
And when the culture changes, right? What they do, and I experienced this again. I lived it as I became chief. The culture had changed, and so every single thing that happened made it to the news. And when I became chief, my mantra was, let me have an opportunity to solve the problem before we go outside, right? And when you do that, we created an open door policy every Wednesday. Anybody in the department could come see me. We'll do the same thing. Every Wednesday, if you have something that you want to talk about, now, listen, if you get in there with the he say, she say, then we're going to get the other person in there, we'll iron that out. But if you have very thoughtful ways to move the sheriff's office forward, I tell people all the time, I don't have a monopoly on good ideas. We will sit down. All the good ideas, I want my people to get credit for. Anything bad that happens, my shoulders are big enough to handle. And so it's a wonderful opportunity, again, to really change the culture of the sheriff's office. Again, it starts with customer service. I used to tell my team all the time, if a person, especially if they're not familiar with coming to jail, I'm not talking about my career criminals. If they're not familiar with coming to jail, if they ask you a question once or 9,900 times, you need to answer that question that first time and then 9,900 more times, because your job starts and stops with customer service, care, and custody. And so we have an innate responsibility to take care of those that are there with us.
I love, and at the end of the day, I think that truly is what needs to change, and I get the sense from that speaking with you. I have one final question, and we'll wrap it up. Why did you decide now, Pat? Why this term, this election? Why 2020? Did you decide to run for sheriff?
And that's a fair question. So let me be honest. I ran before, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I ran in '04, I was a lieutenant, and I thought as a lieutenant, I I was treated like a lieutenant. But after 10 years of being chief and out in our community and seeing what we can do better, right? As a CEO of the City of Atlanta Department of Corrections, and having received, and very humbly, I say this, having received the Georgia Jail Administrator of the Year, not once but twice, in 2015 and 2019, for me it became about leadership. And when you see that void less than 3 miles down the street, and in many instances less than a couple blocks in terms of where the sheriff's office is, you want to fill that void. You want to, I'm in the prime of my career. I'm 52 years old, right? You're absolutely right. My wife and I had some very thoughtful conversations about it. I have a great pension, right? After 30 years, who stays in a place 30 years, right? I have a great pension. And so I wanted to be, I'm from here. I wanted to give that back to our community, at least what it deserves. And so just, again, a wonderful opportunity for us to really lean on the untapped potential of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. And again, you heard my promise. We're going to put those deputies on the street, those patrol cars on the street, and really create a safer Fulton County. That's my goal. And everyone deserves to be safe where they work, live, and play. And let me be clear, that doesn't mean I have all the answers. But we have to be, as a sheriff's office, part of the solution. And we've been sitting by on the sidelines for far too long, for 12 years plus 2. The incumbent served as interim sheriff over the courts prior to the Brian Nichols shoot. So there's some opportunity for us to be the #1 sheriff's office in the country. I ask your voters and your viewers to give me that chance, to put their faith in you, put their faith in me, and understand that in 4 days, actually now 3.5 days, because early voting is over, that August 11th, they look past the incumbent or look past the eye and really vote for change. And that's what this is about. It is a wonderful opportunity for Fulton County as a whole, and we can do better. Fulton County deserves better, and I certainly want to thank you for your time. And I'm still here now. I'm on your time. If you have any more questions.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you for mentioning that. It is the end of early voting, obviously. That ended today. But DemX wants to say to vote for Pat on August 11th on Tuesday, because you are going to bring a climate that I would say, especially right now, in the climate that we've experienced over the past few months, we need a climate of change that will really fundamentally change our streets and the people that walk them, I would say. And I think you can bring that, Pat. And I want to thank you for your time. You did not have to do this on a Friday afternoon, but I appreciate it. Polling will close at 7 on Tuesday. So be sure to do that, everybody. And I have one more question for you. Before you go, tell the voters, Pat, what is your favorite dessert?
Now that's easy for me. It's banana pudding, if made right. If made right. But I'm a huge peach cobbler fan. So, and I'll make that myself. I do consider myself a de facto chef. Let me be clear. So I will. We're starting another web page. So we do a lot of things in our community. We've had to adjust with this virtual environment, and so I'm going to start. I have a big green egg, which I love, and we're going to start a series there as well, just so we can stay engaged with the community. And we'll continue a couple other things. We do have a date night that we started with other couples, right? And that is actually.
I think I saw that the other day. Yeah, it was on your page. That's awesome.
And so that's fantastic.
Very good.
And, just a wonderful opportunity for us again. Let me please say thank you. Now I need one thing. I need one of those shirts. So yes.
Yeah. So I'm in the process of setting up that store, but I'll get one for you.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Yeah, you will. And I want you to feel free to hold me accountable, right? I think that's the only way elected officials should be treated. I'm going to do what I say, and we're going to keep each other where we need to be for the betterment of Fulton County. So,
absolutely. Well, thank you again, Pat. I know that you will do great. I will be voting for you on Tuesday, not Monday.
Thank you.
And I implore everybody to do the same.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your
time.
Have a good day. Okay, you too. Okay, bye-bye.